a lot of government will think about digital currency and try to see how not to repeat the kind of mistake that we have in 2008, where for 3 months all supply chain, all manufacturing were affected, and it was down about 30%. So there are good reasons why we need to look into solving some of these problems.
But how about the money? It devaluate because we will change the crypto money.
So the usage of the demand and supply of money become key, right? If there's a reduced demand on US dollar, which the US is obviously concerned, then the US dollar will actually come down. And if demand of US dollar comes down, then the US Treasury will not be in great demand either. So everybody who has got US securities will also think along the same line, especially China and Japan. They will think very hard. And so there are always a lot of efforts to diversify their own risk into that. So you really can see that happening in Europe, in Japan, in China. I think the trend cannot be stopped.
Thank you.
So I just want to add to what Professor Lee shared, and I'll make it a little more grounded because I was just, in fact, it's very coincidental you asked this. I was just speaking at another conference last week in Singapore, and I was with a room full of central bankers again from various ADB countries, about 40 of them. And these are essentially reserve managers, so exactly the kind of people you're talking about. And I presented on something similar. So here are my 3 takeaways or 3 observations from that. So this is very real world stuff that I'm telling you as of now and probably the next 2 to 3 years. The first is there was a lot of curiosity about what I presented, especially digital currencies, and they were reserve managers, so they were obviously looking at it from an investment perspective. So there was a lot of curiosity. I won't say keenness, but certainly curiosity. So that was the first key takeaway for me. And I kind of based it not only from whatever I discussed informally with them, but even their body language and also the questions they asked me, the number and the kinds of questions. 2, having said that, to add to what Professor Lee said, I think most of them, if not all of them in the room, are looking at some sort of decentralization. I think somewhere in the morning, in my presentation, I spoke about this challenge of central bankers, especially reserve managers, in balancing their own trilemma of risk, return, and liquidity. So they also have a tough balancing act to do. And the way they are looking at it is, again, how do you diversify and de-risk versus their dollar holdings or treasury holdings, US treasury holdings. Having said that, from whatever we discussed and whatever I took away from a room full of central bankers is, while they are curious, a couple of them may even be keen. At the end of the day, they are central bankers, they are custodian of the country's money. They are constrained by how much risk they can take at this point. And while they are more open to diversifying than probably even 3 years back, they are probably looking much more at gold, for example, now as a hedging or a diversification strategy than digital currency. So it is still for them at this point in 2019 going into 2020 in the realms of something exotic, something risky, something volatile. And we had this very detailed discussion about stable coins as being a possible way out for them, and all this discussion around Libra. But whether it will be the Chinese central bank issued stable coin or any other coin which is less volatile, so obviously the central bankers are able to take a position or at least a pilot position in it. It should offer liquidity as well, and it has to be something which has to generate returns or at least have the properties of cash equivalent. So I think this is where we stand today. I completely concur with Professor Lee that central banks are not going to go away in a hurry anytime soon. Not only that, I don't think their portfolio allocation is also going to dramatically change overnight, because you have to also remember here in this room, we are a subsection of the audience which is probably significantly ahead of the curve and is at least very open-minded. Out there, they have many things, many priorities, many immediate challenges also to manage. So this, I think, probably the first real deployments into any sort of stable coins by central bankers in any sort of meaningful pilots, to my mind, would only happen in the next 2 to 3 years. So we are a long way away from what you are foreseeing. Thank you.
I think we have time for one last question. I just want to clarify. Please don't go out and sell your US dollar. Hopefully I don't give you that impression.
I'm just curious because maybe, what will happen to us, the economic view or valuation, how?
It's just a conjecture. We don't see that happening in the near future.
So this DLT technology has been around already 10 years. 10 years is quite long time for financial technology. And if you will look where it was kind of successfully basically used, it just basically gambling, yeah. So like and speculation, and maybe the problem that it tries to solve is not as big, like says that its value added could be justified, because if you consider this 10 years to be kind of like a sandbox where we allow all this experimentation, like nothing like of the big value has come out, and stablecoin is just reversal to the kind of back to the something that this kind of already existed, like it's kind of like mobile money. So, and other kind of experimentations very interesting, like ICOs, DAOs, but decentralized organization, but all this proved to be kind of disastrous, especially DAOs. So maybe like if you consider as an alternative to this, like for example, like fast payment system, which is properly operating and also has this messaging kind of advanced messaging that could allow smart contracts and things like this. Maybe that's a way to go, because like trust is important, but maybe if you have a well-governed kind of country and you are not living in a post-apocalyptic world, this is not as important, because like if you look on the technology, everything goes to the centralization. Yeah, like Amazon Cloud, I don't know, and financial, everything is kind of centralized. And yeah, the concentration is a problem, but because these centralized guys are kind of tested, because everybody attacks the centralized guy, so they build some kind of defenses, and they might be more protected than this decentralized system. So just your thoughts. So if you consider well-governed kind of fast payment system and compare to the DLT technology, what could be the value added of this?
So your thinking is along the line of the Chinese government, very, very aligned. So the Chinese government will, the thing is that it's 10 years, technology 10 years. The problem is that there's a currency name in there, right? So once you have a currency, anything with finance, you are hijacked by people who are really, really smart, and it becomes a money-making technology. And that is what China didn't want, and this is what the world was seeing for many months, either through the digital currency trading or ICOs. We see that greed actually took over. And once greed take over, the technology development will all focus in all the wrong direction. But after all this has come down, and the Chinese has studied for 4 or 5 years, they came to the same conclusion around the same thing as you. They now will empower the WeChat and ICBC and Alipay to go out to exactly do what you're talking about, to a fast payment system, right? But you have a free hand, maybe you have your Alipay payment system, you have a WeChat payment system, but you can do whatever you like. I'm giving you the innovative space to do what you want to do. So what you're saying is precisely correct in the sense that we are moving towards that direction. And the only fear of all this is that every time something comes out on a new technology, if they can hijack that and can make tons of money with that, the actual good path of developing that technology is derailed. And China seems to have this problem all the time, but they are also very good now in controlling that. So if your view is correct, then you will see the Chinese blockchain community and payment growing very fast globally. That's my conclusion based on what your analysis is. So this is how I see, because unless you can direct the direction, all the regulators come together and say that we want all this technology towards financial inclusion, e-inclusion, right, for sustainability. Everybody has the political will to do that. Otherwise, somehow, somewhere, you end up a situation that we have a lot of hearings, right? And then we're thinking about what to do next. And this will mean time. I think China will go ahead, regardless of what the rest of the world are doing. So this is to carry on what you discussed. I don't know whether my analysis is right or wrong, but today I thank you for staying till the end to listen to me. Hopefully I didn't bore you, and hopefully I've shared something.
I have one question.
Okay.
I think you very well articulated China's position. Am I audible? Can everybody hear me? Yes. So my question is, while from a centralized perspective,
they have followed this hybrid approach of DCEP, as you say. So let the front end be done by those who do it best, the wallets and the banks of the world, especially the Alipays and WeChat Pays. Apart from this fast and frictionless or more frictionless payment systems that you alluded to and you kind of very well articulated now, is there other objective of PBOC, for example, to ensure that as this kind of a payment system grows and with more and more penetration of the wallets of Alipay and WeChat Pay, they will actually hold that the funds, the wallet funds as reserves in RMB, and is that also an objective, stated or unstated, of PBOC to ensure that this is also driving RMB as a reserve currency by getting all these players to hold their funds now not with commercial banks but with the central bank reserves, and therefore strengthening and shoring that up as well? What's your view? Again, it could be conjecture, but since you're closer to that market.
Well, there's no direct address to the issue, but they did say that the entire exercise is for international payments, more efficient. And these are all not from PBOC. These are from different officials from different agencies. So we can only infer from their speeches. And the speeches is that they're using this DCEP for international payment, and they believe that the international payment usage shift is not as efficient, it's not as costly as far as China is concerned. So underlying tone, like what you're saying, yeah. I see that China will continue to want to do their own business, continue to grow, and every year they will create 20 million jobs. So they will continue to grow their business, and I can see that they probably try to invest into more countries and help them grow as well. And that will depend on how much resistance that we will see and how much comfort with the rest of the world, with China growing their business arm overseas. But the Belt Road Initiative has already been articulated. It's just that it has not taken off as well. So it's interesting to see how that is. I'm also watching how that will happen. And one last thing is that I forget to mention that there's a cryptography law as well in China now, so that all cryptography techniques are also regulated. So it's very interesting that in terms of regulation, they're moving ahead in terms of managing some of this technology. So with that, I think I would like to thank you for staying back and being patient with me. My views, some of them are quite shallow, so I hope I don't offend anyone, but if I do, please forgive me. Thank you very much.